Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you.
How you doing?
Pretty good. Pregnancy is hitting me a little bit much today, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. Just about every day. Everyone, welcome back. Jen, can you believe we've made it 4 episodes?
No, I'm impressed. We've been very consistent.
I know. And I'm excited that our sound quality is now consistent as well.
Yeah, the sound engineer almost lost her job.
she made it with the skin of her teeth. My brain doesn't work during pregnancy.
No.
You know, like I can't think of any like idioms. I'm like, the skin of your something, skin of your teeth.
Well, we're also recording this in the afternoon, neither of us.
Yeah, we like start tanking
Yes.
around 2:00. I feel like
Yes.
1:00, 2:00 after lunch. It's just downhill.
Yeah.
Yeah, pregnancy is not.
But I'm sure that pumps everyone up to listen to this episode.
I know. Yay! No, we are coming with lots of energy and an exciting topic.
It's my favorite topic.
Yeah, this is Jen. We'll tell our stories in a minute after we do our highs and lows, but Jen is better experience, I guess. I don't know if better is, but like this is very
more experience.
Reflective of our personalities. We're like, I just quit my job and was like, oh shit. And then
I had a 3-year plan.
Jen had a 3-year plan, which is why we go so well together. It just works. Anyway, what's your high for the week, Jen? Or do we start with low? I don't know if let's start with low. I always like to start with low because then you go high.
Okay. All right. Well, my low for the week is that I just started researching infant childcare costs and forgot how ridiculously expensive it is.
It is so expensive.
Now that we have moved on to the next phase, we're like still in between moves, but we're at least out of the Airbnb. I'm like starting to process some next steps in life.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to get on daycare lists and whatnot
right,
so early.
I
think I'm already behind the ball because I'm halfway through pregnancy.
Well,
whatever.
I've got a couple weeks left and I'm not. Yeah, that's a lie. I'm there, but only because it accidentally fell into place. Yeah. Not because.
So I started researching the childcare costs, and it is so overwhelming.
It will like make you choke.
Yes, and I keep reminding myself that it's for 4 years, which is good, but still daunting.
I think the weird part about like becoming a parent, pregnancy, all this, it's like you think about these chunks and like they are just kind of like what used to feel like 6 months. It's like, oh, it's for 4 years.
Right.
Isn't it weird? Like, I don't know. I found myself like more like with pregnancy, people are like, it doesn't last long. I'm like, it's kind of a year of your life. Like,
right.
Newborn phase or like, infant phase, kind of a year. Like, yes. So it's like you go through this like 2-year process and it's just like, it does go by fast.
It does.
But it's still 2 years.
Yes. And then the other piece to it that I think makes it tricky is it's a blessing and a curse that we own our own business.
Of course.
Because we technically can do anything we want. Mm-hmm. It's not like we work for a corporation. We have to be in an office 5 days a week. So the baby has to go to school 5 days a week or whatever it may be. So that just makes it trickier.
Yeah. I think like, we should do an episode about this, like when we're both more into it, I guess, or like have it more figured out. But we were talking about like, are we going to do both kids in school full time? Are we going to like, could we swing it where we do them in school part-time? I don't know. Jen was like a mad woman where she was just like super efficient and did it with like worked basically full time with Emmy in daycare 2 days a week.
Yes.
When she was young. I did not. I put Teddy in full time immediately.
But I was also exhausted.
Yes. Which the exhaustion also, you like have shorter exhaustion caps now because like you don't have as much energy to expend with a toddler in tow as well. So
Jesse has taught me to slow down a bit.
I have. Because then you can't, you're not helping anyone if you burn out.
I know.
You got to just like take a breath, have a drink, put your feet up. I literally made Jen put her feet up a minute ago.
You did. So anyways, that's my low for the week. You can find my GoFundMe at, just kidding.
Shout outs at the end, Jen.
Okay.
Venmo at Jen.
Okay, we'll have Colin link my GoFundMe in the show notes.
Oh my God, go fund Emmy.
No, I got to fund number 2.
Yeah, you have to fund number 2, right?
Emmy's funded.
Emmy's funded.
She'll have a job by the time she's 3.
She'll probably be trying to sell me something.
Actually, and then I promise we'll get back on track. She sells ice cream out of her toy ice cream kit. And she is so my daughter. When she sells 2 scoops, it's $5. And sometimes she won't even ask what you want. She'll just stack all the scoops and try and charge you $20.
I love it. Teddy would just give it away.
No, she upcharges.
Oh, man.
Anyways, what's your low for the week?
My low is I have officially reached, I've probably said this multiple times.
Yeah, it's just like the birthday.
Birthday and pregnancy. I just can't let it go. I've officially reached that time in pregnancy where it's just like everything's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like I can't sit, I can't lay, I can't sleep, I can't.
What's amazing is you look fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Not it's by magic, not by any. You don't look
uncomfortable.
I feel very uncomfortable.
That I know because you tell me all the time.
Because I tell you incessantly.
Yes, but you don't look like that.
Yeah, I like grunt every time I like sit or stand or do anything. It's just I'm 34 weeks this week, and it feels like I'm like remembering those last 6 weeks or so.
My best friend just had a baby girl, and around 34 weeks, she was like, yeah, I feel like I'm like 45 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
So that's my low. It's like, and it just, I don't know. He feels bigger this time. Like, and
well, you stretch faster.
I guess so. Yeah. And it's
so maybe it's that.
Yeah. And like, he's like kicking my ribs. Teddy, just dropped a pen. Sorry. Teddy didn't really kick my ribs much. Like he was very active, but this kid is like,
oh, if this kid's more active than Teddy, I know. I'm slightly concerned.
Pray for me. But yeah, anyway, so I just like, I pee like 74 times a day. It's just all the things. And I'm just about ready to get this baby baked.
Well, my friend went in the 38th week. So maybe you've got 4 weeks.
I know. That's my like,
that would be on our plan.
Your friend is giving me, Jen's like, it's on the plan. The baby can't come before that. Your friend's giving me a lot of hope that it will come at 38. Otherwise I'm inducing at 39 again. But yeah, that's my low.
Yeah. Okay. And my high.
Oh, your high. What's your high? I'm sorry.
My high for the week is Emmy going back to school.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for her. It was a little sad to send her back to school.
Mm-hmm. First day drop-offs are rough.
Well, we've had her home with us the last 18 months.
It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, we had a nanny who was helping us, but we got to see her throughout the day.
Totally.
And we spend a ton of time with her.
Yeah.
Matt and I are both fortunate to where we'll kind of like juggle meetings so we can see her throughout the day.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I think it's going to be really great for her socializing.
Totally. She can start putting her staff together for the ice cream shop.
Yeah, exactly. It amazes me how the little kids, because they don't know anything else, are completely unfazed wearing a mask to school.
They're it like doesn't bother them. It's so funny because like, you know,
right.
Anti-maskers are like the kids, the poor kids. And it's like, they do not care.
Yeah.
They don't care. Mm-mm. They like, the only thing is Teddy like chews on his mask sometimes and it's kind of disgusting because I'm like, now your mask is wet. That's gross. But.
So I got her these great masks. Paige Lauren is the brand.
Okay.
And
we'll link them in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll make a note of it to link them in the show notes. Paige Lauren is the brand. They make these really soft, nice masks. And so I got her those for school and she was super pumped.
Oh, I got to try those.
That's what I wear. Oh. They sent me a pack and I love them so much. I bought them for everybody.
Oh, there you go. I got to buy some too. He needs more. I just got some like cheap Amazon ones and they haven't held up well.
Paige Lauren. What about your high? What happened with your birthday this week?
Nothing happened. My birthday is over. It's August. We can kill my birthday. What's my high? I had something that I was just telling you about. I know what my high is. My high is that, so my sister-in-law and brother-in-law and nephew came this weekend and it forced me to clean my house. Like organize, get everything like out of, it was just a wreck because like we were in the middle of unpacking, honestly, like still, you know, getting the baby's room ready and everything. And so it's not perfect, but it's getting like there. It was a huge leap to get everything where it's supposed to be, put things in the basement. Our basement flooded, so we had to take everything out of the basement for a while. It was just like everything was everywhere. And so I got so much in order. Clothes are put away. Like it feels a lot more organized. So that's trying to keep it that way until baby comes. We'll see if that works. But yeah, that's my high, is that my house has been like pretty clean for the last week. So I'm proud. And by week, I mean since Friday.
That's about a half a week.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's progress. I made my bed 2 days in a row because I was like, felt clean. It just felt like my house was like so neat. And I was like, oh, I should make my bed.
I want to drop Matt off here for a week. And
oh my God, Matt would run.
So for the people listening, anytime we have more than like 3 dishes in the sink, Matt will be like, what is this, a frat house? We got to keep it clean in here. So it just makes me giggle.
Their house looks like it's
we call it museum status.
Yeah, like museum, or like ready for a walkthrough at any point. Mm-hmm. Like a showing, like a real estate showing.
But people are allowed to live in it while they're there. You know what I mean? Like I feel like our house is one of those homes where you can come over and kids play easily and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
We don't act like it's a museum.
It's not.
But at the end of the day, it has to go back to museum status.
Exactly. It definitely doesn't feel like I'm tiptoeing when I'm at your house, but it's just funny because like yeah. I'm like, where do you put all the things?
Spills and whatnot are completely fine.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, counters must be clean, things back in the cabinets.
We're not at museum status, but
no.
Kyle says I say museum really weirdly. Do I?
You say it a little different, but
yeah, I don't know.
I'm just a Midwestern girl. What do I know?
I don't hear it. And so it's like every time I say it, he's like, what are you talking about? Anyway.
So the topic this week.
Why you should start your freelance business as a side hustle first. Jen, I think this is one of your favorite topics.
It is. I'm very opinionated on the topic. I feel very strongly that people start their business as a side hustle first, because I think when you quit your job and just jump into it, most of the time, or a lot of the time, you're so focused on making money that you can build your business incorrectly.
Totally.
Because you got to hustle to get the paycheck and pay your bills and whatnot.
We see that often.
Yes.
Let's give them a little bit of background. When I decided to like start freelancing, before we started the marketing greenhouse, I was at a job that was just like very stressful. Honestly, like the work of 3 people, it was a lot. And I also had, when I started the job, Teddy was 3 months old. It was just like insane. My life was insane for that period. And so when I decided to leave, it was just like, not like I gave 2 weeks notice and everything, but I was just like, I'm done. I got to go. I don't even have the headspace to figure out what's next while I'm here. And so I just quit. That's funny. It's funny because that's when I called Jen and was like, hey, can you let me know what to do? I just quit my job. We were not like friends at this point.
Which is also funny because I feel like I have a lot of people who do that to me.
Yeah. People just quit their jobs and then
not necessarily quit their jobs, but whenever someone's like, I think I'm going to quit, I always get a phone call.
I think it's because you did it so well. You wrote about it a lot on your blog and you did it.
From the inside, it felt like a hot mess express.
It always feels like a hot mess on the inside, but you know what I mean? You did time it out well. And I think that I don't know. That's why people call you. But yeah, I just like jumped ship and luckily got like 4 clients. But like you said, you
figured it out fast.
Yes, I got very lucky that I had like 1 client who's still a good friend, and like she introduced me to 2 other people who introduced me to another person, and it was like bam, bam, bam. I had 4 clients, which was great. Like I basically just wanted like in 2 months to get enough clients to like make up my salary, which like before taxes, but still I was just like, if I can do that, and which was basically going back to paying for daycare, you know what I mean? I was like, I just need to like, get that in there. So, yeah. And then I called you, but like you were saying, what happened is that I was building something that I didn't know what it was. Like, it was just like, okay, you need me to do this? Sure, I'll do it for that money. Like, I don't care. You know what I mean? I just wanted the income.
Yeah.
And ended up building something that like I hated.
Well, then people get to a place where it's like either, oh, you only do this, right? And you're like, well, no, I can do all these different things.
Totally.
Or what is it that you do? Because you do so many different things.
Yeah. So tell the people what you did.
So financially, it worked out just fine, but it was kind of I'm a brand marketer at heart, and my branding approach was less than best in class. So I started, I knew I wanted to leave my corporate career about 2.5, 3 years before it happened. So I started slowly figuring out how much time could I dedicate each week, which, I didn't have kids at the time. That makes a very big difference. Which initially was like 10 to 20 hours a week that I would carve out over my lunch breaks and in the evenings and one day on the weekends.
Also another huge thing when you don't have kids, like being able to carve out time on the weekends. I feel like that's something I really miss.
Yeah.
Like as a parent.
There's nap time, but you need to recharge.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like wiped by nap time.
Yeah. So I started working in those chunks of time to just test and learn and play around with things. And this is where my non-expertise comes in terms of building the right brand. I initially was very focused on the wedding industry and I let it unfold organically. And I let people tell me what they wanted versus trying to sell a service per se. And that worked very well in the sense that I learned a lot about myself and what I wanted to offer. But it was very uncomfortable as someone who, someone who just loves to have a plan and
totally,
when you have such a strong career background and you automatically pivot to something that's just all loosey-goosey, it is so uncomfortable.
Yeah. But especially like such a strong corporate career, like they're like,
I was like totally
always paths and like guidelines.
I was like on the right path and checking all the milestones and winning the awards. You're supposed, all those things. And then all of a sudden there are no awards when you're working by yourself.
Pat yourself on the back.
Yeah. No one knows what the heck you're talking about at first. But you really learn to trust yourself. My big thing there's a couple things. One is a year and a half before I went full time, we started living off half my salary.
Okay.
So half my salary would just go to savings because the thought process was, if we can't do it now, I can just change the distribution.
Right.
The money is still there.
Totally.
And if we can, then great. I know how much money I need to make.
Okay. I have a hard question for you.
Yes.
This is something that I think is often not addressed enough in like when people talk about entrepreneurship and starting your own business. There's obviously huge privilege in having a dual income household.
Yes.
And I think that
I think there's ways to solve for it though, but yes.
So that's kind of the question I'm going to ask you, because it's not like, neither one of us were like, I'm going to jump ship and just play around and whatever. Like, we were both like, okay, yes. Like, but at the same time, we still had a safety net. It's not like we were just going to not work for 4 years and float and like, just, had time to figure out whatever. It wasn't that like easy breezy, but at the same time, we also knew that like our mortgages were going to be paid, And so I think that there's huge privilege. And I think that that's something that's not addressed enough. When people talk about like, quit your job, just go crazy. You know what I mean? It's like, but also like, so I'm wondering if you have any, because I know you also think through things practically and probably would have done this even on your own, like without a dual income.
Yeah. So, yes, I did. And there's a couple pieces of advice that I always give to people before they start. I actually care more about the financials when someone is starting a business versus the idea necessarily, because the idea is going to continue to morph and change no matter what you've come up with. But I think it's important what I call your oh shit button. What's the button you hit where you're like, this is not working. I need a job now. I only have X amount of dollars left in the bank. I always ask new business owners, what is that threshold for you? I think it's important to have stage gates in place. I also think it's very important to have 6 months of savings in the bank and just understand your runways. So
when you say 6 months of savings,
so that you can live for 6 months without
anything,
without income.
Right. Okay.
And this is also why I think it's important to start your business as a side hustle, because if you do that, you understand how you're making money.
Right.
And if you like doing that, you also start to understand how fast your products sell or how easy is it to get clients. Because if you have a slow month, you won't necessarily hit the panic button right away.
Totally.
So when I first launched, like when I went full time from side hustle to actually going full time, I had a cushion that I had saved up of 20 grand that would carry my quote unquote salary.
Right.
For several months.
And that's because you had like been working overtime beyond overtime.
Yeah. Because you're either you'll either sacrifice your time or your money.
Right.
And at that time, I preferred to sacrifice my time versus money.
I was going to say, and also I think that that's like another thing that people think like, oh, okay, I'll save up for 6 months and then quit my job. And sometimes I think that you're a great example of like, no, sometimes it's years. Like it's not just going to be this like overnight, I can jump in.
Yeah. It was a solid 18-month plan.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long time, but it's also like a commitment that that during that time you've like ridden it out and that that's exactly what you want to do, which is great.
And even after that 18 months, it was still really scary doing it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like you had a good job. Like that was like, it's not like you were just like, yeah, okay, whatever.
I think about it every Friday when my paycheck doesn't come in.
Our paychecks. It's so true. When we don't have health insurance and everything else, we do, but through our.
I'm just teasing, but yes.
So I think we've kind of made this like list of bullet points of like things that we think that are important to look out for, or why we think it's important to start as a side hustle. My number one thing is like you have to make sure you like what you're doing. I think a lot of times we talk to people in like consulting calls or whatever, and they want to start a business or they want to start X business or Y business. And it's kind of like why, and you realize they just have no clue what they're getting into. Like, and that is a scary place, because if you jump into a business and then you realize like 6 months in, like, oh, I hate all of this, then you've kind of like wasted a lot of time, wasted a lot of money, maybe lost a job in the process, and you hate what you're doing.
And that's why if you started as a side hustle, you can pivot as much as you want.
Yeah. I think one of the things I learned when I was jumping was I was doing a lot of like execution for social and thought like, okay, I could totally do this, which I could, but took on a couple clients doing running their whole social accounts, and it's not what I wanted to do. I mean, it was like so soul sucking for me. And Jen and I at this point are kind of like, we hate execute. We've both decided we don't like executing. We like the strategy, but the nitty gritty, like we have.
And it's hard to grow because execution is so hands-on.
Right. Exactly. It's you're so in it that, you can't grow a business. And so that was like a huge learning curve for me of, oh my God, no, I don't want to do this. So I had these 4 clients where I was doing execution, and I was like, how did I get here?
Right.
Jen and I have this joke where we're like, what have we built on hard days? And that's how I felt. I was like, what have I built? And again, if I had started something more of a side hustle, I might have been like, oh, wait, that's not exactly what I want to do. But it's not that it was like Jen said, it's just always pivoting, I think. So it was more like I wanted to do strategy. Like I wanted to, advise people on like how to do it. Or, now again, we have someone that does execution because it is a huge need. But it's just interesting how, you jump into something sometimes and you're like, oh, I thought this was going to be so much more fun, and it's not.
Right.
Or like so much more like rewarding or interesting. And it's just like, oh, just like in the weeds with it.
Right. One of my tips is starting as a side hustle, because the amount of administrative work off the bat and kind of forever, but definitely when you get started is just off the charts, that you're spending so much time getting things set up, whether you're starting it as an LLC or getting business insurance or whatever it might be, that you underestimate the amount of time it takes to get everything in place. And that takes away from actually building the business and making revenue.
Yeah. I think that the admin work is, especially at the beginning, and it's also expensive. I think that's another thing, you know, to get everything set up. And sure, there are fees every year, but that beginning, like getting it all set in place is very expensive and all. Yeah. Very time consuming. And just like, oh my God.
You feel like an intern for a while.
Yeah, you do. Or I still feel like we feel like interns sometimes. This is a good one for you, Jen, talking about validating your idea and like making sure you have a viable business. I think that this is like, so often people think like, oh, I saw someone making a ton of money doing this or whatever it was, and like haven't like thought through the actual like business plan or strategy. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I can give the example of what I initially set out to do. So I had this brilliant idea, and I hope someone listening steals it and actually makes it happen. So my idea was, when you're wedding planning, it's overwhelming to find all of the vendors. And I wanted to provide this concierge service where you tell me a little bit about your style and your budget and where you're getting married. And then you get matched with like 3 florists. I think it sounds great in theory. But it was so time consuming to try and build that it was just absolutely impossible to get it off the ground without it being really high touch or trying to like pitch for VC dollars to turn it into an app. And it got complicated really quickly. And
there's just huge competition in that space.
Huge competition. The Knot came out with something like that the same year I started
Wedding
working
Wire.
on it. And it was before Wedding Wire did it.
Oh, okay.
So that's validation that it was a good idea.
Yeah.
And I remember Matt saying to me, like, I don't get it. And I was like, oh my God, he doesn't believe in me. And at the time I was so crushed because I thought to myself, like, if I can't figure this out now, like I'm never going to figure anything out. But it's important to pay attention to when people understand what you're doing. When you first start to explain what you're up to, I think it's always uncomfortable because people put you in a box.
Right.
They're used to the woman who did corporate marketing for 10 years.
Yeah. And they're also more like, oh, you're not an accountant, or like, you're not, like if you don't have like a normal role, people are like, huh, what do you mean? Like,
right. And then I think it's important to pay attention to how they receive your idea and the feedback that you get in return, because when people are confused across the board,
it's not a good sign.
It's not a great sign. And you have to take that into account. We also see business owners sometimes, which just breaks our heart, that are so committed. They have so much conviction in what they have built and what they're selling that they won't listen to their consumers. And when something doesn't sell, they won't pivot.
They like double down.
And it's like, I think it's great that you have so much conviction.
Yeah.
But if it's not selling, you're never going to make any money.
Right. I think that's a bit of like the Shark Tank of it all, of like, people are just like, if you work hard, it's like, yes, but there's also a little bit more to it where there's like, if it's not selling, it's not selling for a reason.
And it has to align with the marketplace at the right time, or the ideal consumer need, or the fundraising you need behind it to bring the consumer need to life.
Exactly.
So I think when you hit that point in the road, you have one of 2 choices. We had this with someone who we worked with where they spelled their brand name in an interesting way. And we had talked about, okay, if you're going to spell your name this way, you can either re-educate the world on how to find you, particularly with SEO optimization and whatnot, or you can pivot.
Yeah.
Everything's just choices, but you have to know when to pivot, or at least when you're uncomfortable enough to where you're ready to make a few tweaks.
Okay, so let's now talk about figuring out what kind of clients you want to work with. I think this is a big one. I think because we both had experience with this on the freelance side, we figured out quickly what makes sense for us and clients that click with us. And now at this point, and honestly, I think save the one client we fired, but we'll talk about that on another episode. We've done a really great job finding clients that we just click with, that work really well with us, that we work with well, and that feel easy. So I think that that's really important because a bad client can be very draining.
Yes.
You need, like you were saying before, you need your energy, and you can get so drained by working with the wrong people.
Yeah. I mean, when you're working with clients that drain your energy or are giving you so much feedback to where it feels like you're consistently missing the mark, it doesn't feel good on either end of the relationship. And it's important, I think, when you start working with someone, to manage expectations, which comes through with a clear scope and everything we've talked about in terms of that, but then also checking in to see how they're feeling and know that you won't be able to make everyone happy.
Yep.
And if you come across someone where you're just not going to get that, you will not make them happy, or that, they'll never give you the pat on the back or appreciate your work the way that you would like, finish your scope out, and you can always move on to the next project.
And I would say oftentimes you find that even before you sign them. So if you get a bad feeling, don't sign them. Just understand.
We've learned that one the hard way.
Understand that you can walk away. And I always think it's a great idea to have like backup people that you can always refer out to.
Yes.
If it's just not clicking for you, if it's not a good fit, if they're complaining about price, it's always great to have like a second round of people that do the similar things that you do and be able to refer them, because it's just not going to work with everyone. Like you said, with the scopes, I think that's a big thing you learn quickly too, is to really outline your scopes very clearly, and also like get very, very specific with exactly what everything entails. I think that everyone in freelance work gets burned once with like 14 rounds of edits. Yes. And you're like, wait a minute, I did you scoped out thinking that they'd have like one round of feedback, and then all of a sudden you're 14 hours into a project and you're like, well, this was supposed to be a 4-hour project.
Yeah.
So try not to get burned that way.
Yeah. Which I think is also a good segue into the next one for us, which is figuring out your strengths and weaknesses.
This one was luckily so easy for us. Not so easy, but pretty easy. People often ask us like, how'd you guys find each other? How'd you find such a perfect business partner? And I'm like, honestly, dumb luck. I don't know. We did something right. Good karma, because I think we fell into each other's lap, and it was like yin and yang. We just work we both have such opposite strengths and weaknesses. And because of that are able to really run with them and make it work really seamlessly.
I honestly think part of the reason it clicked so quickly is because we launched over the pandemic, which was 100% over Zoom.
Yeah.
And I think we worked in person like 3 or 4 times
before we had to shut down.
And then we had shut down, and we were working virtually for 9 months.
If not longer. Yeah. Probably about 9 months, because I think we worked a little bit together over the holidays, but then again, it was back into lockdown.
Yeah.
During the winter.
I can't quite remember when we got together. Like, we worked together over the holidays for a client, masked up.
Yep.
But I can't quite remember when we actually sat down at a table together and worked. So, meaning every interaction we had was through a video screen, and we had to get honest really quickly of like, what's working, what's not working. This is giving me a headache. I always say this. One of Jessie's best qualities is that she takes feedback extremely well. Like, most people, when you're working with someone who honestly has become like a best friend, you get nervous when you're like, oh my God, you're driving me crazy, but I have to tell you you're driving me crazy because we have to talk about these things. And I can say anything to Jessie and she's like, okay, that's fine. Like, we can fix it. You have to tell me these things.
I'm very aware that I can be annoying.
And Jessie's also great at poking right back.
I don't like things to simmer. I'm like,
no,
a Cancer. I like all the emotions out on the floor. I want it clear so that we can address it and like move past it. I don't like things to like.
I think that's how we figured out strengths and weaknesses so quickly too. So that's why I think it's important to know your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah. Just make sure. And even personally, I know not everyone has like a business partner. Obviously, I think it's very important with a business partner. Because then also like there's a third part, there's strengths, weaknesses, then there are things we both hate. Right. So like we outsource those or can't do, right? So we outsource those.
Yeah.
But I think that's important. Like if I was working by myself, I would not be running QuickBooks.
Yeah. But I also think it's important to own your weaknesses.
Yep.
Because if you don't and you try and fake it till you make it, you may end up losing some clients.
Totally. I think that one of the like I heard, I don't know, someone said this once, like people spend way too much time trying to like fix their weaknesses instead of leaning into their strengths. And I 100% agree with that. Like, and I actually think, Jen, you're really good at this. You're always like, stop trying to do that. Like, you don't need to like, just, no, I'll do this and you do this. Like, stop. I'm always like, no, it's fine. I can
update QuickBooks.
Yeah, update QuickBooks. Jen's like, yeah, no. Just do it. Do what you do. And I'll do what I do.
I also don't design Instagram grids.
There you go.
It would look very much like clip art if it were up to
me. So the next thing is set goals and milestones. You talked about this with your gates.
Stage gates.
Your stage gates. You love a stage gate and every part of business.
So I just think it's very important to outline, not to sound too business nerdy, but your quantitative and your qualitative goals. Because owning your own business, no matter how you structure it, is very emotional. It's you. It doesn't matter if you have a business partner or not. It doesn't matter what the brand is. The business is you when you're starting out. And if you can outline your goals very clearly, it starts to take the emotion out of it. So you can make clean and clear decisions.
I also love the idea of quantitative and qualitative because it gets so hard sometimes when you're so caught in numbers. And, anyone who's ever run any sort of business understands that like it's such an ebb and flow sometimes. And you can't always, you can project that a month is going to be great and then it sucks. Like this summer, I know like a lot of people have felt and our clients have felt like it's been a slower than expected summer. Last year was not as slow as some people expected. Some people's businesses did really well after they thought they were not going to do well. And so I think that when you have both like the numbers and also your other goals, then you're able to like feel good about things when you reach them, even if your numbers are not exactly where you want them to be this month. I mean, obviously it's great when they both align.
Right.
But it's nice to have both.
I also think it helps to, particularly with the qualitative goals, like more of the things you hope to achieve or accolades you want or press you're looking to get, because as you start to build your business, you will so quickly become focused on the next goal that we often don't celebrate the small wins along the way.
And therefore you end up feeling like you haven't done anything.
Exactly. And it's very hard to not compare yourself to other people. People always talk about focus on yourself, avoid the comparison game. It's nearly impossible to avoid it 100% of the time. And when you have your qualitative goals written down, it reminds you to celebrate those wins along the way.
Yeah, I think that's a really good advice. A really good piece of advice. Getting feedback from clients. This is another one that I feel like you taught me and has been super helpful.
It used to make me uncomfortable.
It is. I think it's still uncomfortable, honestly, because it's just like,
Now I love it because I'd rather hear it early.
No, I agree. And I think that you do it early and often too. And I think that that's really smart. It's like going into your like 360 feedback review in corporate. Yes. You're just like, no matter how good your year was, you're like, well, this is it. I'm getting fired. Yeah. Like, it's always just like so scary. And I think that it's one of the things you taught me, like, to just constantly check in with people, because so often you don't realize like there are flags that people are like uncomfortable with something, or something's not going the way that you thought it was, or you thought everything was peachy, and your client's like, actually, and it's not that they're like ready to fire you, but it's, if you hadn't asked them, then it might have like snowballed into something bigger.
Well, and I think we almost run into this more often because we work with so many small businesses that their priorities are really specific to their business. And unless you're in their shoes,
right, you don't know. And they don't have someone in another department to flag X, Y, or Z for you. Or like if they had another meeting and you weren't in it, which again, often happens in small businesses because it's often a bunch of contractors and they forget to relay the information back to you, then you just completely miss it.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that was a great one. I feel like we check in monthly at this point and just make sure, like, is everything going okay? How's communication? I think that's a big one.
Yes.
Really understanding communication styles with clients. And
yeah, especially if you're in some type of a consultant type role.
Yep. Because some people are like, yeah, I feel like I'm just like not, you think you're communicating really well. And then they're like, yeah, I just feel like I don't hear from you much. And you're like, wait, really? Like, and then there's some people that are like, yeah, I don't need to hear from you like every day. Like,
yeah,
give me an update monthly.
I always try and pay attention to clients. And the second it feels off, I reach out like, how's it going?
Yeah.
Before we get into something strange.
And because again, often it's not like some big buzzer went off in their head and they're like, these people suck, but it's just these small, like, oh, I am feeling like I haven't gotten enough insights on like our work, or I haven't gotten enough feedback from you, whatever it is. And you're like, oh, okay, great. And you can like nip that problem in the butt before it becomes bigger.
To bring it back to the scope, if for some reason they're like, no, I'm really happy with the work, I just thought I was going to get 10 rounds of revision.
Right.
You can always very kindly bring them back to the scope of work and say, oh, I'm sorry, that was a misunderstanding. As we outlined in the scope, it's typically 2.
Which is why you always have a scope, which is why you always sign this contract and make sure that you're on the same page.
Yes. And our last tip, probably my favorite, being the finance one, which would actually make my parents laugh because my parents work in the finance industry. And I always was like a terrible student when it came to accounting and whatnot. But our last tip is building up an emergency fund. So to me, this goes along with goals and milestones and whatnot, but building up the right emergency fund so that like we talked about before, like what's that oh shit button where you need to go look for a job or pay your bills or whatever it may be. Because the worst thing that we see with entrepreneurs is when their back is pushed up against the wall. Yeah. And then they just start grabbing at any kind of dollars that'll come through the door.
It'll drain all your creativity. It'll drain all, like, everything you have.
Well, and then it starts to drain your bank account because you're just grasping at straws.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. The emergency fund is really smart. And I think that like you said, especially when you're single, or if you are in a single income household, that's, I don't know, more important, but potentially more important, depending, how.
Yeah. And I will say this, you had asked me about this earlier. If I had launched the business and was not married to Matt, and I was single at the time, I would have made a rule for myself, because this is, part of my stage gates, but I would have made a rule where if I'm dipping into the emergency fund, I'm updating my resume and starting to apply for jobs.
Okay.
Because you can't like flip a switch and get a job.
It takes a while.
Typically 2 to 3 months
to
get a job and get through the process. So if I have 6 months of savings, I'd start interviewing for jobs. You can always, if you get the job and business starts picking up, you can always turn it down and say that something has changed. But that way you're not completely depleting everything.
I was going to say the other thing that I think with that is sometimes like underutilized is, you know, I know before I was saying that like love your job. You don't want to like jump into something you hate, which I agree, but also know like what your skills are, like what your hard money making skills are. There are certain things like I know that no matter what, I could always go back to social media execution and make good money doing it. You know, and I think that for me feels like a safety net because I know that there's a huge demand for it. And I know that I could hustle my way and get however many clients I needed, you know, if everything blew up, if you decide to divorce me tomorrow.
That's funny that Jesse says that because anytime we have to discuss feedback, if I ever have to be like, Jesse, this is bugging me right now, or vice versa, the conversation always starts with, I want to remind you that this is a marriage and we're not getting divorced.
She was like, and you're not going anywhere.
I'm committed.
Which is great for my soft Cancer emotional soul. I'm like, I love you too. Jen's like, yeah.
Get back to work.
But what was I saying? I lost my train of thought now. I'm laughing at you. I don't know. Hard skills. Yes. Always have a skill. Always have some sort of skill.
Oh, yeah.
That's all like you're saying like an oh shit moment, but also like an oh shit skill where like if it's bartending, I know that's like a tough one this past year.
Right.
But you know, I think that was like big for me. And it's something I tell my sisters, like always have something where like if shit hits the fan, you can go make some money, like
right.
and decent money, you know, doing whatever it is. And I think that that's really important. So again, like sometimes it takes a while to get a job back, especially like if you've been out of corporate for a minute, like it can take some time to like get back in the job market. And so if that's going to take a while and you know you're dipping into your fund and like you don't want to be just like depleting an emergency fund with no money coming in, have something you can do. If you can like design websites, if you can copyright it, you know what I mean? Like there are all these smaller skills that you can make decent money off of so that at least you're not just hemorrhaging money while you build your business.
Yeah.
So
those are our pro tips.
Yeah. If you
I just say absolutely start a side hustle before you take it full time.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, like you said.
I'm very biased to it.
Yeah, and also like figuring out health insurance and all of that, you know, as an entrepreneur is not fun. Like that's a huge all these benefits. It's not even just your income, it's all the benefits that come with having a full-time job that you are running away from when you're
you get to be the president and the janitor all at once.
Yeah, so just make sure that
give it a test run before you jump in.
Exactly. Make sure you like scrubbing floors.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Jesse, where can the people find you?
The people can find me on Instagram at Jessie B. Bernhardt, BERNHAR, D as in dog, T as in Tom. I always feel like at the end I spell that wrong, but that's correct. My blog is jessiebarnesbernhardt.com. One day soon I'll get all these posts that are in my draft up.
Jesse has like 50 really good posts that are in
drafts. And I think that's it. I don't know. How about you? Where can they find you, Jen?
I am at jen.nay, JEN.NAYE on Instagram or jennay.com. And you can find The Marketing Greenhouse at The Marketing Greenhouse on Instagram.
Yeah, or you can find us on our website, themarketinggreenhouse.com. Shout out to Kelly Etz, who is redoing our site right now. So it'll be fun and fresh and brand new soon. But if you would like to contact us or set up one of our 20-minute jumpstart calls where we can talk you through if you're starting a side hustle or thinking about making the jump, we can help.
And if you really love this episode, go leave us a review, please, on Apple Podcasts.
Yes, please. Thank you. Talk to you guys soon.